Hello, all you gamer gals and guys out there. Welcome back to the Esports Rewind podcast. I apologize. I'm starting off today feeling really somber and really sad. You know, no one ever asks how I'm doing. They're always like, how are you doing?
They just ask the same exact thing, except differently. And I don't know how to respond.
But we hope you guys all enjoy. I'm wearing a Cloud9 jersey in respect because at the point of us recording, we just found out that Cloud9 is actually leaving CSGO, which is, oddly enough, one of the least spicy stories of today's podcast for the Esports Rewind. We hope you guys all enjoy. Shall we hop into these stories?
Let's go.
Before we do that, really quick, I have my goddamn comment picked out. Thank you guys who leave comments. One from Ravish. He says, workouts paying off, Jake. Nice triceps, biceps, bruh. Thank you, man. I've been working on them like crazy, just all day, every day. You got one?
I'm absolutely not surprised that you chose that comment out of all of them. We'll go with one that we talked about again. Also saying, bro, I swear this co-host looks like 100T Nitro.
Oh, dude, I was going to say almost like Scooter Braun, who's an investor in 100 Thieves. So maybe, or Z-Laner.
Yeah. Z-Laner is what I got when I had blonde hair, and now I'm Nitro.
You know what? I'll take it. I don't know if you will.
Fine. I wish I was a pro player, but it's fine.
All right, here's what you guys came here for. Enjoy the stories. And speak of the devil in 100 Thieves, one of the bigger back and forths that I think we've actually ever seen between developer or, of course, the big old game people at Riot Games versus an organization, that being 100 Thieves. There was a lot of thoughts out there. We were actually running live polls throughout the entire controversy. If you guys missed it, we have full videos on this because it was a pretty complicated drama, pretty lengthy at that. We were actually running live polls throughout it, though, when all of the information was coming out. People firmly on 100 Thieves side and then swinging right to Riot Games side. To give you guys, trying to kind of summarize a quick TLDR, we have Riot Games seemingly out of nowhere after VCT Masters dropping a competitive ruling, that being the probation of Coach Frost from 100 Thieves and a $5,000 fine, to which they said they were delaying the match due to ping issues. And then 100 Thieves, they actually bite back. They have an announcement post themselves denying these claims. They also released a 4-minute video, of course, which was referencing what Riot accused them of, threatening to use player social media to leverage against Riot in that instance. And then Riot claps back against 100 Thieves clap back. They edit their post saying they have 3 witnesses, Coach Frost admitting to it, and along with that, 100 Thieves denying to send the full video about the entire instance. Thank you for sitting through that. It was obviously pretty spicy stuff.
Right, and then just radio silence after all of that. We haven't heard anything, since that announcement. I think it's crazy, especially from Frost's point of view of, he gets caught out and they say that, hey, you admitted to it. And then nothing. Nobody says anything. He's like, okay. Like, they don't say any more words, no more allegations, thrown out there about who was in the wrong. It's like they just settled it. They're like, we're just going to move on.
And no extra stuff about, what was exactly said. Or, you're right. It was very clear that 100 Thieves chose to angle at that. I think they could have had a separate argument for the whole ping issue in general, to which there's been Immortals members also coming out about the ping issues, which we don't want to dive into. But 100 Thieves directly tried, when they dropped that 4-minute video, they wanted to come back and collapse on the point that they did not threaten to use their social media. Riot Games clapped right back. I think 100 Thieves and Riot Games both could have handled it better to a certain extent. But 100 Thieves, you chose that angle. The other angle to me would have been to argue more on the ping side, but they chose to deny the allegations Riot Games said and also try and, bite back with video evidence, which was cool at first. And then to your point, I think the silence is probably your best move. You don't want to keep on hashing things with Riot Games.
Right. It's interesting to see it all going on social media as well. Like, this is likely a conversation they could have had outside of social media, but because 100 Thieves, and this isn't a negative towards them, but since they are so social media heavy, I mean, that's benefited them and all of their members a ton, that they almost had to come back on social media and, make a response and, like, prove themselves, quote unquote, even if at the end of the day, like, they just went radio silent, but still at least they responded at first and people saw that and they probably swayed a decent amount of people.
I mean, it's really interesting because Riot's been known, I think Activision Blizzard as well, to have fines be public. And so they announced the competitive ruling. Could you have kept that behind closed doors? I don't know. We saw before all this, days earlier, it was Coach Frost and Hiko talking about how they almost got in trouble. And then days later, Riot comes public about the announcement and the fine. So if they don't make that blog post, but they always make fines public, I don't know if there's But yeah, if you're 100 Thieves, you could have tried to contact them behind the scenes, but because it's 100 Thieves, once that competitive ruling was announced, everyone, of course, was flaming them.
Right.
So they felt the need to fire back, and this is what they got themselves into. I think it's a much more complicated argument than what we probably saw at face value, but I still kind of stick to the fact that, Riot Games clapped back pretty hard saying, send the full video. They didn't. I don't really know where else I could stand on that besides the ping argument in the first place.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think 100 Thieves probably chose the best out they could just by not responding.
And to be honest, we'll end on this. People might bring it back up in light, in the next few weeks, but we've had so many crazy stories like this.
I always forgot about it.
People forget about Dream, and that's not even esports, that's more gaming. But there have been so many cases where people are just quiet and everyone's like, okay, wait a few days, something crazier is going to happen, and no one's going to care about this. So we'll see what happens with 100 Thieves and the future treatment they get from Riot Games. Obviously, one of the biggest stories this past week. And I think a really apparent issue that's going to keep on being talked about because, unfortunately, Twitch kind of keeps coming back in this limelight. That's going to be what they call these bans that are being issued by mistake. It's actually happened to a couple big figures in the past month alone. We first covered this on the channel with 100 Thieves Tommy. I try to break this down in a video as well, where Tommy, 100 Thieves member and a Warzone pro, was actually banned for what was called revealing non-sensitive information on a VOD. He was later told, when asked for context in particular the case, what did he do? What did he reveal? That VOD might have been deleted. So immediately people are like, how was the ban issued if the offense and the VOD in which that offense was made was gone, and you can't give him the actual reason? How can you possibly issue that ban? Within 5 hours of going to Twitter, he was unbanned. A similar case as well, following that, just weeks later, we got Ryan Higa in a big old group of Among Us streaming on Twitch. Valkyrae was one of them. He gets banned midstream, and what he later calls was for hateful conduct. Ray and all these others take to Twitter to say, unban Ryan, and within 15 minutes, he's been unbanned, to which he was later followed up with an email from Twitch saying, our bad. It was a mistake.
You've got to imagine that it has to be some sort of automated system that's like, if the VOD was deleted, is this a system that's just going through VODs that they have access to that are, deleted at this point, but really their system still has it, and it detects something, maybe in the coding, and boom, they ban them automatically for this thing. And I'm curious, at the end of the day, okay, this has happened a few times with prominent figures, and so when do you decide, hey, maybe we need to fix whatever this code is that is just auto-banning people for no reason? Because if this is happening to prominent people, then imagine what it must be doing to non-prominent people, and then they just get screwed out of their channel probably.
Yeah, and it makes you think that Ryan's case could have been automated, right? Hateful conduct is a very, very broad term that seems like something, and Twitch has been known, even though they say they give you the reason, they don't give you the specific reason. And oftentimes, unless you're a big streamer, they don't give you the clip or the segment of what your offense might come from. That's different for someone like XQC, who's huge in the platform. So for Ryan, it might have been. Hateful conduct is super broad. When it comes to Tommy, you non-sensitive personal information on VOD is not automated.
Right.
It came from a VOD that might have been deleted. So that seems a bit more like it was actually an oversight by some staff member. But to your point, I'm sure it happens automated all the time. But it is certainly weird because the main concern here is when you're a big streamer, you have a big voice and you got big friends who can help you out. Do you really think that Ryan Higa it could have been automated, he was automatically banned, and then Ray, within 15 minutes of Ray tweeting, he's unbanned.
Right.
Do you really think Twitch went in to look into his case, or was just like, oh, shoot, frick, unban him. People are mad.
Right.
But smaller streamers, middle-tier streamers can't do that, and they're not going to be seen. Like Tommy had a giant Warzone and 100 Thieves and nade shot behind him saying, what's up with this? But a lot of streamers don't have that, and so that's where the concern lies. If this is an automated thing, which very well could be, what do you do if you're smaller?
Ultimately terrifying either way, actually, now that I think about it, whether or not it's automated or a person going through and doing it. I don't know which is worse, because at least automated, maybe you can fix the program or whatever it is. But if it's a person, then I don't know, are they firing those people that was watching through Tommy's VODs and decided that he shared non-personal information or whatever it was, and then Ryan Higa was someone watching? I don't know how you watch Ryan and think that he has hateful content.
But it also makes you wonder, if it was automated or not, what was seen as hateful.
And was it just something that was like out of context, or like how did it end up happening? Because if you watched either of those people, then you would know for a fact that those bans shouldn't have happened. And so it's just weird that they get taken out for who knows what reason, and then immediately they turn back around. They're like, "Oh, our bad."
And then if you're a staff member, like if you are a staff member going around, how many like strikes do you get of like, "Oh, dude, you weren't like they didn't do anything. Why'd you?"
Right.
And then you find out like, "Oh, I just didn't like them from like 2017. Like
Right.
I wanted to give them a 3-day."
Yeah, like is that their full job to begin with? Is their job just to like go through random streamers and like find something to ban?
I think it's increasingly scary for the smaller people out there, and we've definitely seen that come up a lot more since these last two. So we'll see if Twitch has to fix their automated system. We'll see what happens, but so far in the past month, when it comes time for just prominent names alone, Twitch has banned at least 2 people by what they call mistake. And this next one is not going to ever be an issue for me, but one that you covered from the Dota 2 space. Keep on listening, all right? Because this is going to be coming to other games out there, potentially in the future. Something that everyone is well aware of is Smurfing. And now, accordingly, Dota 2, apparently Smurfing is going to be a big old bannable offense.
Yeah, and we've seen that from, we talked about in the office yesterday of Dota has banned, Valve has banned Smurfs before. They banned like 40,000 accounts last year and have made efforts against it, but I think this is the first time we've seen any game ever make it an official bannable offense where they are outright saying, hey, you can't Smurf, and we're going to be using, like our discretion to look at these accounts, and then if we decide, hey, that you're Smurfing, you're gone. We're banning that account, and we're banning your main account.
Yeah, because there are certainly prominent figures. I mean, if you're a pro or a top-end streamer, you've likely had a Smurf account or an alt account. I don't want to rat anyone out, but I've seen some prominent CSGO guys ride back through the silvers just for content, right? We see it all the time with Fortnite and Overwatch and CSGO, and oftentimes, as a game company or developer, you're not going to want to ban those prominent figures. So to make this an official ruling, it's a bit of a hairy area because we don't know the finite details, and other games, like you said, have kind of been around the same area, but not fully enforcing and not fully establishing rules for it. So it's, especially for League of Legends, you would wonder, where do you draw that fine line? Because I think League of Legends right now, being the most prominent esport in the entire world, a lot of streamers are known to be Smurfing. So, where do you start drawing that? Because I imagine with Dota 2 now, you're going to have some kids out there and players being like, so-and-so pointing fingers.
Right.
And if you're Valve, what do you do? Like, oh, God, he's actually gets a lot of viewers. What we do?
I think it's probably a big difference in the game because, like, League of Legends is so content-heavy at this point. There's so many streamers who only stream League, who make videos on YouTube of only League of Legends, versus Dota isn't really a content machine like League is. And so you see streamers, content creators go back through League of Legends and play, in their bronze and silver ranks just for content. They play off-meta champions and builds and stuff like that.
Yeah, from this rank to this rank, only playing this champ.
Right. And so that's like a very, I could never see Riot getting rid of Smurfs at this point. Because that would hurt their content so much.
Yeah.
But Dota's problem doesn't have anything to do with content creators. At the end of the day, it feels more like Dota just wants new players to stick around. Because, we looked at the story earlier in the week, and like their numbers have been slowly declining. They're around like a little bit over 600K right now, concurrent players. And so seeing that decline, but now they're making all these efforts towards new players specifically.
Yeah.
And so it seems like they're doing this just so new players will stick around and not be matched up with, a pro in their first game.
It must have gotten really bad. I occasionally play in CS, back in the day. Of course you get smurfed on, right? You got buddies making new accounts all the time. It's just what you kind of got to deal with. And eventually, if I ever were to get to a decent rank, I want to start a second account and kind of, have a little fun with it. I ran into smurfs, but it's kind of a lay of the land. I wonder how bad it had to get where Dota was like, okay, there are clearly no new players wanting to come in right now, and everyone who is existing player just wants to play at lower ranks.
I bet pretty bad.
Like, what was the breaking point?
A big difference between Dota and League is League gets to buy all your champions, everything like that, but Dota you get everyone immediately. So there's no real, other than cosmetics, there's no real penalty for making a new account. It's not like you can't play your favorite champion when you go to a different account. And just based on the comments on that video, it seems like people were very grateful for this. They're like, oh, this was like a huge problem. Like, I'll finally re-download Dota 2 again. Or even people were like, oh, great, I'll switch from League to Dota, which is probably what Valve is like, yes. That's exactly what we want.
That's a one win we have against Riot in a long time.
I know. And so it seems like it was a problem. I'm not a big Dota player. I've tried it, and I mean, to their credit of making all these new things for new players a long time ago, it was very confusing. And so I think these new advances are a great idea for them. Overall.
Yeah, we will see if banning Smurfs brings Dota back into the light a little bit and taking a tiny jab at Riot Games in the competition that is ever ongoing. And some really sad news out there, especially for what remains of North American Counter-Strike and the fan base over there. Yes, I'm repping them today proudly. And unfortunately so, the reports have now been confirmed out there by Ryan from Rush B as well as Nell that unfortunately so Cloud9 for the time being will be leaving the Counter-Strike space. One of many. We've had handful of players from the North American scenes make the switch to Valorant. This is the first, obviously premier and prominent North American esports organization for Counter-Strike in Cloud9 to also depart amidst the pandemic and ongoing financial struggles with this team who, albeit, I love the boys over there, have not accomplished what was necessary. And so just 5 months after the Colossus was fully formed, the Colossus is probably going to go down infamously as a meme. They are now done and ceasing the project overall.
Yeah, I don't know if if Cloud9 got their return, on the return on investment from what they paid for that team there, which it's interesting that you say you're proudly repping them when they're the ones leaving the CSGO scene.
I'm proudly repping them.
Proud of them.
Because they're still a big org and you're right. I don't often use the best wording for things, okay? Just to speak of that really briefly on a side point, I think I saw Ryan's tweet on this about the financial situation. I believe in total transfer fees, they paid almost $1.2 million for that 5 months. That's not to include the $130,000+ in salaries paid out each month for the entire roster. So we're looking close to probably, let's just say, just shy of $2 million, which a lot of people could argue was completely wasted for Cloud9. And this is just a really interesting spot to be in. I think it's a great time to have a podcast because it's a longer form discussion that maybe we react to in the future. Cloud9's in a very precarious situation. Last time we talked about them leaving an esport was Rocket League, and that was shortly before they paid, the rumored $11 million to lock in perks for, again, I think it was 3 years, but a large buyout. So you're Cloud9, you have no Rocket League, you have no CSGO, you're most prominent for League of Legends and the LCS, to which you got perks, and right now, your Valorant team, for lack of you're shoddy, you're kind of sucking,
right,
but you got tens. So to me right now for Cloud9 Esports, this is a very interesting time because your Colossus just failed. You've left Counter-Strike, you left Rocket League, and you got two very, very prominent names. Your next moves matter. Obviously, Valorant is the rise of the space. I think they're going to try and use some of these CSGO guys to switch over. But what the frick do you do? Because it's just, it's interesting, man.
Right. And you mentioned Tins, and hopefully I'm not misspeaking here, but he's not really playing with them, right? Like, they have him,
but he's a valuable piece,
right?
Very clearly.
But he's saying that he doesn't want to play with them, which is again another interesting situation. And then my other question in that is, so did they have the Colossus team on contract for do we know how many years it is, and do they have to keep them for that contract, or can they break it and pay them out or something like that?
I am pretty sure, based on Cloud9's history and what we've seen across esports, they signed those 3-year contracts, but I highly doubt they're going to be paying those for 3 years. I am sure there is some workaround. I cannot confirm that to you guys, but just based on what we saw with Chap and Vivid for their Fortnite contracts with Cloud9 were much longer, and they lasted a matter of months. So I imagine they're not committed to paying those 3 years out, but it brings up a curious point because if you do want to, you can pick and choose, and maybe far-fetched here. I think Tens has made it pretty vocalized he doesn't want to stay with this roster, but I mean now he's got 5 more guys to choose to play with, but I don't know how
they decide to switch over to Valorant.
Again,
right?
I mean, when you're talking about Cloud9, they already have 3 Valorant rosters. I forgot the Korean roster was already wish-washed away. They have 2 others, sorry. So, I mean, you have Cloud9 White and you have Cloud9 Blue. Cloud9 Blue is not really... I mean, you now have, 9, 10 players? Are those the ones that Tens would even want? Can you really build around him? Does he probably still want to leave?
I doubt he wants old CSGO players for Valorant, especially if they haven't been playing. I know this is a whole nother argument, but if these CSGO players have been playing Valorant or not, have they been practicing? He probably wants a team that knows Valorant agents better than maybe they're good at CS, but as we know, Valorant is similar, but a whole different game.
Yeah, I don't even know where I'm trying to. It's just such a confusing situation.
Right.
And to me, it's hard not to look at this as like, I'm just disappointed because you have clearly really financially put yourself out there.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Okay.
I was going to say I'm Cloud9's daddy, but that's just not. I'm feeling kind of weird. You have clearly financially committed for League of Legends. And, I think this will be a big turning point for Cloud9, whether they choose to pursue Valorant and really, really go into it. They need something else.
They need success somewhere because they're not really having it anywhere, to be honest.
I guess we could go maybe towards this angle. And again, these are weird comparisons when you start talking about things for too long. Does Cloud9 all of a sudden you're looking more like an Envy or 100 Thieves where people look at you and they're not seeing too much esports success.
Right.
And you need to make a move. And Envy with Valorant has. And CS, yes, certainly has had its struggles, but Rocket League and Valorant and Call of Duty, Envy made a turn. Whether or not you like Hastro, they've made a turn for esports. 100 Thieves has done the same. They leave CSGO, but they're doing decently in Valorant. They're still very well known. They got League of Legends, and they are having more esports success than they have in the past. At what point do Cloud9 fans kind of make that turn and be like, you have to be something outside of League of Legends?
I could see them doing well for themselves by kind of doing what a lot of those teams have done in investing in like some young guns somewhere instead of cashing out these big bucks for like the biggest names. Like, hey, find some hot shots that are young. I haven't really had like a ton. Right, too late now. Don't really have like a ton of experience, maybe in like big orgs or anything like that. But like you could believe in and like get a good coach and coach them up and like play with them for a few years and plan on like a 3-year plan.
Like you should do the Cloud9 Colossus, but do it in Valorant. But the pandemic, man, yeah, if we're going to go back around to the CSGO stuff, the pandemic's so poorly timed. The results clearly were not there. I think Cloud9's in a very, very interesting situation in esports right now. We will see what their next moves are because certainly, not just to us, but to everyone out there, they are very, very important, the choices they make. And this last one for all of you guys is a doozy. Probably, I don't know if I want to say the best story, but definitely one of the more shocking stories, the first that we have ever seen since our time in gaming and esports. Yes, we are talking about, hey, if you're in the room with your parents, grandparents, family, friends, just a little warning. Here we go. We're talking about a prostitute. And a prostitute that is making a shake in the Dota 2 scene ahead of the Singapore Major, which in itself is just been, for lack of a better term, a disaster in the making?
Yeah, more or less. We'll see. It starts tomorrow. As recording this tomorrow, the 27th. And we don't really know how it's going to go. But yeah, so we had a player, Bobica, who they're from. Their team Aster, a Chinese team, and he's in Shanghai in an apartment. Police end up coming to the apartment. He gets caught for having a prostitute. What do you like?
I'm sorry. I just like how you really went into detail. He's in Shanghai. In an apartment.
Yeah.
During the
I'm
pandemic.
just setting up the scene for you.
You can imagine how lonely someone is getting.
In your head, he's, getting ready for this big major, right? The Singapore major. He, maybe a little bit stressed out. Yeah. It's illegal in China, but he's like,
I'm pent up.
Yeah, like we'll see what happens, and solicits a prostitute for what he admitted to the police was $400.
$400
for some of the segs action.
Dude, we know what we're making here.
Right.
$400 for a little interaction with was that bad?
Just a little bit,
I mean, I'm just trying to think about, and again, these are as of right now, seems to be rumors becoming very true, but just to say they are allegations. But I mean, just to think about that alone, you have a pro player about to participate at the first LAN they have seen in God knows how long in the major itself, a pretty big moment, which has already been kind of ruined by a lack of wherewithal from teams and organizations and Valve themselves probably. Right. We'll discuss that in a second. But I mean, you're right. What was this, the day before you're set to travel probably?
Yes, they're about to leave the next day and is, on his own, doing some stuff.
I mean, I gotta wonder. I don't know what he's being paid. I don't know what he's making, but $400. I mean, to you and me, and to a lot of people out there, that's not a cheap fee. I mean, what are you getting?
Right.
For
To be
$400?
fair, I have no idea how much prostitutes cost, so I don't know. We have no comparison.
I guess that could be
Is that expensive for an Iowa boy? I don't know.
I mean, for me, that's freaking expensive, man.
So
you better refill your gas in your car or something.
Right. Give me some water. Come
on. Oh, give me a heck of coffee. Like, you better bring dinner. I mean,
so definitely difficult situation for him, especially now. Like, I don't know where it goes. Like you said, not necessarily confirmed because they said it came out from someone who isn't necessarily as trustworthy. But then right after, Team Aster posts saying that, for personal reasons, he's not going to be able to be there, which if you solicit a prostitute in China, that's 5 days guaranteed in jail. And so those would be very personal reasons, I would say.
Yes.
And again, like, how does he show his face after this in the Dota scene? Like, imagine any pro player anywhere doing that. They're just going to be memed on for the rest of their lives.
I mean, for at least when it comes to our audience and our viewers, this man is lucky he's not European or especially a North American pro. I mean, this would live onwards and forever in our little, jokes to make. But especially when you think about from a team, you can think about a lot of cases about what your pros can do, and you can think about a lot of punishments you would have to issue for certain cases. I don't imagine when you hire a pro, you're ever concerned, all right, don't be going soliciting prostitutes, all right? Because
but we never know these days. With that boot camp we saw with CSGO.
It's just like, I mean, hey, if this is what it takes to be better, do it. You got to find better legal ways of being better on LAN or being better at performing in your game or esport. Not to even be the that's obviously the bigger part of the story, but this major in general. We have Valve trying to go back to LAN, and I applaud that effort, but it seems to be kind of a nightmare situation thus far.
Yeah, they didn't do it very well. They had a lot of the European teams agree to kind of what was going on and like how they were going to handle the COVID situation to make sure everyone was safe, but the other teams didn't see those same terms, and they just kind of had to agree with it if they wanted to be involved in the situation. And so it ended up only being a 48-hour period of quarantining beforehand.
I wasn't going to think of that. So good
instead of the 2 weeks like most people do. And so just that 48 hours is not safe enough, everyone agrees, because you could contract COVID on the way and not test positive for it. And so you never know. And we've already had a ton of teams. Na'Vi and Beast Coast have already pulled out of the tournament because some of their players have gotten it. I mean, Na'Vi had like 4 people come down with it and test positive, and then Beast Coast had 1 but interacted with the other 4,
which you have to take into precaution.
Right. So it's just a mess so far, and they don't really know what's going to happen at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have updates for you guys on the channel if something does happen even further than what you've already covered. But obviously, I mean, it's just a crazy story all the way around. It just really kind of proves the point that Riot Games, when it came time for League Worlds and what they're about to prepare for MSI and for Valorant as well, going back to LAN, they take the precautions and they know what they're doing. The fact that I'm glad Valve is trying, but when it comes time for putting on LANs during a pandemic, Riot Games has a track record that's looking pretty good, especially now compared to Valve.
This is going to be a huge comparison game because, I mean, the event hasn't even started yet for the Singapore Major. And so seeing how that pans out and if, any other players end up testing positive for COVID during it, that's going to be compared immediately to the Iceland events. As soon as it happens,
if not Worlds,
could be really good or really bad. Like, you never know. Like, if Riot also fails to do it well, and it doesn't go well, then, that probably helps out Valve's image a little bit in how this all is going. But if it goes, perfect, then that's bad news right there for Valve, I'd say.
And especially for the other Valve game that they kind of neglect, CSGO, if you ever want to get back to LAN, this Dota major is kind of a precedent of what might be coming for the future. So hopefully things will be learned from all of this, and we'll see how the Dota major does go. One person who will not be there is Boboka. As per usual, we hope you guys all enjoy the Esports Rewind podcast, same time, same day, every single week. You want to follow Hunter on Twitter or me on Twitter, follow Esports Talk on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the YouTube, and our website. We have all social medias out there, guys. Please go check us out. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you want me or Hunter to read them off next episode. But we hope you guys all enjoy. You want to show these fine lads and ladies out?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, we love you. Adios.
We like you guys a lot. Love is a really, really strong word, and it can lead to heartbreak and a lot of pain in your life. So please be careful if you ever use the word love. Only use love if you actually freaking mean it, dude.
You're okay.